The Stoic teachings of Marcus Aurelius, especially on relationships and not chasing women, provide a framework for focusing on self-mastery, emotional resilience, and purposeful living. In this context, not chasing isn't about avoiding relationships, but rather about adopting a more grounded, self-reliant, and balanced approach to life and interpersonal connections. Here's a full exploration of how Marcus Aurelius's Stoicism can guide us in forming meaningful relationships without falling into dependency or obsession. 1. Self-mastery and inner fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius's Stoic philosophy places great importance on achieving self-mastery, a quality he saw as essential to living a virtuous life. Chasing people for validation, be it women, social acceptance, or other external sources of approval, is seen as a potential distraction from inner peace and stability. Aurelius emphasizes that genuine fulfillment comes from within, not from external sources. He notes in Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts," implying that internal reflection and control over one's own mind are crucial to contentment. In the context of relationships, self-mastery encourages the idea of being grounded in one's own values, interests, and strengths, rather than relying on others to fill emotional voids. Chasing relationships from a place of neediness or dependency would mean that one's happiness is dependent on others' approval or affection, a setup for disappointment according to Stoic principles. 2. The importance of purpose over pleasure. Stoicism calls for a life lived with purpose and alignment with nature. For Marcus Aurelius, purpose meant striving to live with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. He encouraged focusing on what truly matters, such as personal growth, service to others, and fulfilling one's role in society. In his view, relationships should support and even enhance one's purpose, not detract from it. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to focus on the things we control, like our actions, thoughts, and responses, rather than those we don't control, such as how others feel about us. This doesn't mean avoiding all relationships, but seeking those that align with one's principles. Relationships built on shared values and mutual growth are desirable. However, pursuing them merely for fleeting pleasure or validation can pull a person away from their true path. 3. Detachment from outcomes in relationships. A significant aspect of Stoicism is the idea of accepting what we can't control, an idea that applies deeply to relationships. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about detachment, urging people to let go of attachments to outcomes. This perspective prevents us from becoming overly focused on the approval or reciprocation of others. Detachment in Stoicism is not about indifference. Instead, it means being free from unhealthy attachment to specific outcomes. This can be applied in relationships by not trying to control how others feel about us or the future of any particular connection. Relationships are approached with openness, but without an expectation that they will fulfill all our needs or work out in exactly the way we might desire. By letting go of the need for a particular result, one is more resilient in the face of disappointment or rejection. 4. Developing inner strength and independence. Stoicism emphasizes cultivating inner strength. By focusing on internal resources, our principles, virtues, and goals, one builds a solid foundation that doesn't depend on others' approval or presence for validation. Marcus Aurelius consistently advocates for this kind of independence in Meditations. He advises people to stand up straight, not held straight by external factors, a metaphor for relying on inner strength rather than external validation. In relationships, this Stoic independence fosters a healthy balance. It allows individuals to engage with others from a place of completeness rather than neediness. This mindset also guards against the emotional roller coaster that often comes with chasing, as it promotes stable self-worth and emotional resilience. 5. Choosing relationships based on values, not desires. According to Stoicism, relationships should be based on virtue and shared values. Marcus Aurelius suggests assessing a person's character rather than being swept up by fleeting attractions or external allure. In Stoic thinking, this helps ensure that one's relationships are substantial, providing mutual support for both partners' personal growth. Marcus Aurelius would likely caution against basing relationships on physical attraction or passion alone, as these are seen as transient qualities that don't offer lasting value. Instead, he would advise cultivating connections with people who share a commitment to growth, wisdom, and purpose. This approach aligns with the Stoic idea of living a life guided by reason and virtue. 6. Relationships as a reflection of one's character. Aurelius, in Stoic thought, sees relationships as a mirror of one's character and values. Rather than chasing or focusing on external admiration, a Stoic would focus on embodying values like integrity, kindness, and wisdom. The people attracted to those virtues will naturally align with those traits, fostering relationships that are more authentic and enduring. For Marcus Aurelius, being virtuous means treating others with respect and fairness, regardless of the outcome. This means relationships aren't just about fulfilling personal needs, but about embodying and sharing one's best self with others. By focusing on being a virtuous person, you attract others who resonate with those virtues, creating stronger and more meaningful bonds. 7. Contentment with solitude and self-sufficiency. A Stoic principle deeply held by Marcus Aurelius is the idea of being content with solitude and self-sufficiency. This doesn't imply isolation, but rather a sense of wholeness and peace when alone. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, he wrote, encouraging the idea that solitude can be a source of peace and reflection. In practical terms, this means that one doesn't pursue relationships to avoid being alone or out of a sense of loneliness. Rather, one finds value in solitude, self-reflection, and growth. Approaching relationships as a complement to an already fulfilling life, not as a remedy for emptiness. 8. Living with integrity and avoiding superficial pursuits. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics champion living in alignment with one's principles rather than indulging in superficial pursuits. Chasing people or relationships for the sake of status, pleasure, or validation would be seen as misaligned with Stoic ideals, as it suggests a life led by fleeting desires rather than enduring values. Aurelius would advocate for relationships that are straightforward and genuine, where one is fully present and honest. By avoiding superficial pursuits, one keeps their focus on what truly matters, being a person of character and purpose. In summary, Marcus Aurelius's Stoic teachings emphasize self-mastery, purpose, and the importance of relationships that enhance one's character rather than serve as a source of validation or pleasure. His Stoicism encourages a focus on inner strength, valuing solitude and cultivating relationships based on shared virtues rather than fleeting desires. The ultimate goal, according to Marcus Aurelius, is to live a life of purpose and integrity, where relationships are a natural extension of a life well lived, not a means to fill an emotional gap or validate self-worth. This approach leads to healthier, more meaningful connections that are grounded in respect, mutual growth, and shared values. By following this path, one avoids the emotional turbulence and dependency that often come with chasing relationships, achieving instead a sense of peace and purpose.